check the audio real quick. All right, let's see if I got this right. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, Chad. How are you doing?
Good.
Good.
Let me just, because there was a, awesome. All right, we can start the interview now.
Okay, now where do I need to be looking? Or
right here.
Right there.
Yep, right
okay.
there is the camera.
All right.
Dr. William Bell, I am so proud to know you.
Thank you very much. So am I.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. I assure you the pleasure is all mine to be able to even, have you sit down with me and just talk about whatever. You got your honorary doctorate last year at Predators Pilgrim Weekend 2017.
I did.
And it was a surprise from everyone. Where was that from?
From, wow, you asked me and I can't even remember the name at the moment. Let's see. Vision International,
Vision.
yes.
Vision
and
International.
I'm getting old. I'm getting close to my 64th birthday, and so I have to remember. But let me say also that last year I was so impressed with the work that you did with the visual technology and videos, etc. And I'm looking forward to having the same wonderful experience this year.
I assure you it's better.
Well, good.
And also, I just want to let you know it's a passion of mine, so I appreciate being able to do it, and the fact that you guys even trust me to come here and do it. I love offering my time and my abilities to be able to do this.
Well, great.
It is definitely humbling to see so many people relying on little old me. So I appreciate your words of kindness. You're speaking this year on a couple different topics. Tomorrow, you're speaking from 10:30 to 11:15 on the terminal generation.
That's correct.
And also on Friday afternoon, you'll be speaking on the Spirit in the Last Days.
Correct.
And just those 2 times.
That's right.
All right. Can you give us a little preview or just a little bit of explanation of why you're speaking on those topics?
Yeah, well, the theme of the conference this year is back to the basics.
Right.
And I feel that an understanding of the terminal generation, identifying the particular generation that both the Old Testament and the New Testament was focused on for the end time is very critical. As a matter of fact, when I did my first debate, that was one of the primary points that I made in terms of the framework, if you please, for eschatology. And along with that, the same thing with the Holy Spirit, because both of them are tied to Jesus' teaching on the coming of the Lord. And so I feel that if people understood the framework of the Holy Spirit and the terminal generation, that would help to put those things into perspective and show where all these other passages that we get into all these disputes and discussions about fit within a framework.
Right.
And so that's the reason. And it's just trying to highlight that and help other people to see that these are some, just basic but critical points that will help them to, find the hermeneutic and eschatological framework in order to interpret properly those other passages.
Awesome. And so for new preterists and old preterists alike, we'll all be able to learn something, I'm sure, from it. Last year I learned a lot, and I know a lot of people in the audience were very appreciative of your speeches and got a lot from it. There's a lot of comments on the live stream. People seem to be really excited to see you here again.
I see some names I recognize.
There you go. Can you tell us just briefly too about your journey into preterism? How long did it take you to become a preterist? What led you to? What was the pinnacle point that really made you jump right in and say, "Yep, all right, preterism is it"?
Okay, how much time do you have?
Briefly.
Okay, yes.
In the preterist sense, briefly.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, initially, when I first became a Christian, one of the Bible teachers was teaching. And I was impressed by his knowledge, and so I asked him where did he get the information. He said from a bookstore. So from that day forward, I started every payday, I would go to that bookstore and buy some books. Well, I happened to go in there one week and I picked up 2 books, one by Ford Wallace Jr., which was the book of Revelation, and the other one was Josephus.
Okay.
And then as I read, I saw how Wallace, who was an amillennialist, however, he did interpret books like Matthew 24, and the book of Revelation with an AD 70 perspective. So that got me hooked on the date.
Arthur Ogden did the same for me.
So from the first, I was what we would today call a partial preterist. I didn't even know those
Right.
terms back then.
Right.
And then with that foundation of the 70 AD dating of Revelation, which I thought was critical in understanding the book, and it still is, I was reading in my study, and I happened to be reading Luke chapter 21, and I came across verses 20 through 22, where it talked about when Jerusalem was surrounded by armies, these would be the days of vengeance, that all things that were written would be fulfilled. So I knew that that he had to be speaking of the Old Testament. And what was interesting is the background out of which I came was fundamentally, and still is today, that the Old Testament was fulfilled at the cross.
Right.
And so I said, if this is true, this whole paradigm has to change. And one of the first things I started doing was just going back to make sure those end time passages such as Daniel 12, Isaiah 25, etc., were still in the Old Testament. And I said, if what Jesus is saying here is true, then these things have already been fulfilled. And from that date, that was November of 1979.
Wow, that was the year I was born, William.
Well, it will be almost 40 years that I've been
Yeah?
a preterist on next year.
Wow. Do you know
A full preterist.
Any idea if you'll be back again next year?
If I will be back
Yeah.
next year, Lord willing, I
Yeah,
plan to
Lord
be.
I hope so too. And before we finish the interview, I just have to ask you, can you tell me a little bit about what PRI Ministries means to you, and some of the things that you see going forward that are worth maybe their time and money to be able to contribute to PRI, and some encouragement in that direction?
Yes, I have been on a PRI conference for, I think it's 15 years, ever since it began, I believe in 2003. Well, I missed the first year because one of the sisters who was one of our matriarchs, if you please, of the congregation, she passed and I had to do her funeral, and so that's why I wasn't on the first one. But every single one thereafter I've been on. And it has made a tremendous difference in my life to see how this ministry has grown. I remember when, Don and I go back, a long way.
I've seen the posted YouTube videos.
Yeah, and so I remember when he stood out in front of a restaurant. We were having dinner here one night when I was preaching. I did a meeting at his congregation, and he talked about his vision for the Preterist Pilgrim Weekend. He didn't have the name and he didn't have all it, but he talked about his vision as far as eschatology was concerned. And then here, once he came here, he mentioned one time that his vision was to touch the world.
Right.
And I remember how impactful that was to me. That, here's a person that's not just saying, I want to reach my community. I'm not just wanting to reach he said, I want to impact the world. And that's exactly what has happened with Preterist Pilgrim Weekend. It is all over the world, and everybody who is affiliated with it and understands that knows that impact. And so I think it's very critical that those who are involved in this movement and the understanding of it should really, really consider the need for the financial contributions and their mutual support, which we all appreciate. But I mean, there's no one that I know who has published more books than Don Preston.
Yeah.
He is very consistent in doing his morning musings. He's always on Facebook teaching and helping people understand. And I can't think of a better person with a greater sense of integrity and his
passion is infectious.
Passion and devoted wife who does this, and yet to hear him at times think about or talk about the fact that they need to have the funds. I mean, if there were other ministries out there that had the amount of knowledge, expertise, and relationships that are being built and the life changes that are taking place, they would be funneling tons of money into it. And I don't know what people's financial status is, but I do believe that the sacrifices that are made will be well worth their effort and will be well received and appreciated, and certainly would go a long way, because they're not just looking at what we're doing today. We just had a meeting today. They have a vision even for beyond their lifetime, and to be able to take a ministry and see it for something that's going to continue on after your death, that is That's very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And so those are some of the reasons why I believe it should be supported.
I was just talking to Daniel Rogers in the last interview, and I was telling him how much us older guys, I know I'm not old, you laugh because I'm only 40 years old, but how much we appreciate the younger guys, seeing the younger guys involved.
Yes.
And to do that, we need to reach a younger audience, and the streaming, the internet, the technology is where the younger people are watching and listening. So cable access is a thing of the 80s.
Yes.
YouTube and live streaming on social media is a thing of the 21st century. And to be able to keep this up and stuff, people need to help contribute to these, because the cost doesn't go down. You know, it either stays the same or gets more expensive as time goes on. So either a monthly contribution or even just a one-time contribution, whatever you can afford or feel comfortable with. If you like seeing William Bell here, if you like seeing all the speakers we have here, if you like the live stream, if you like the things that Don's doing, the things that all PRA Ministries is doing, please donate. It will be appreciated, and it will be used for good and for the furthering of the truth of the gospel, and we will all catch the power of this.
Yeah, I have to get my shirt before it's over.
Right? I want to see you wearing that before the
I
end of the
will.
weekend.
Look, I need another shirt because I probably didn't bring enough.
Right? Well, thank you so much, William. I appreciate it. I look forward to hearing your talks, and I know everyone else does. There's a lot of people that probably want to meet and greet you, so I'll let you go and do that. Thanks again for sitting down for the interview. I know they appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of the Predators Pilgrim weekend.
All right, thanks, Chad. Appreciate
welcome.
you.
Bet.
God bless you,
God
and
bless
hello
you.
to all the audience. You all have a great day. Looking forward to it.
Yep, definitely.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. Oh, and I need to.
Yeah.